So I came across this article that was posted on manparallel.com. I will link that in the show notes as well. So if you want to read it, you can go read it. But basically, this author talked about, in order to, I guess, to get a praise, you have to, do something better than your peers. So someone in your age group. So she talked about how she got this job, this writing job, and that she was published, and that, for the first time she was actually doing something very, very established for her age. And people would regularly comment, like, wow, you're so young, you're doing this at your age and stuff like that. And it got me thinking, like, this is something like, I guess, like I've experienced growing up as well. People would always say to me, wow, you're such a young business owner, you're doing so well for your age. But then what happens when when you turn 30 and you're no longer impressive? You're no longer doing something that's impressive for being 30. So it got me thinking, like, you know, what are some of the pressures we deal with and why do we deal with it, growing up? And how did this obsession with achieving things at such a young age come to be?
This is a very juicy topic, actually. After I read the article, I felt it has touched on a lot of things that people actually don't realize, especially in Asian households as well. There's a lot of Asian prodigies out there. By 5 years old, they're playing like as good as Chopin or Mozart.
Mm.
And I feel like, especially with our Asian parents, there is a lot of comparisons to other Asian households. My kid is studying grade 3 maths, even though he's in prep. What's your kid doing? My son is doing blah blah blah. My daughter's doing this. So it's actually instilled in us from such an early age.
Good point.
And when I was reading this article, I was like, well, this happened to me too. By the time I was in year 8, I finished my grade 8 piano exams, which is really good for my age gap. And then when people hear about this, like, wow, your child's doing so good. And then the other parent be like, oh, my daughter's doing violin, this and that. But then it gets to a point where, how good are you for your age gap? No, how good are you for your age until you don't become good enough? So you hear a lot of stories where people are prodigies, where they're singing, maths, or whatever. But when they do hit their 20s or even now their mid-20s, they become on a very equal playing field.
You actually brought a really good point, like about growing up. Like in schools, right? We always constantly get compared to our peers. Like even at school, you get grade based on your performance and so naturally, for the NAPLAN test, that's comparing with people who are the same age as you.
And people are starting in grade 2 doing that test, and it gets so competitive.
Yeah, and then when you get to year 12, for example, and go preparing for uni or college entrance, you get scored based on how well you do compared to your peers. So it's like this deep-rooted society problem. And so the other thing I thought about was, we've growing up, we've kind of have this structure in society, you get by the age of 5, you go to kindergarten, whatever, and then you've got to go to school, and then, you go to uni, and then after that, you got to get a job and then get married and settle down. And then
It doesn't stop there,
it
though.
doesn't stop. Yeah, it doesn't stop. And then like that's how you stop comparing. That's how you start comparing yourselves to people because you'd be like, I'm already 24, but shit, I haven't found a job after uni yet. Or like, shit, I'm 25, I'm not married, I'm not settled down, I'm still single AF and stuff like that. And so the thing is, I think when you look at people who are our parents' age, when they're 40, 50 or 60 or whatever, they don't have the same problems because when you get to 40, 50, there's nothing left. It's just like, you just get married.
There's nothing left.
It's like you get married and there's no expectation and anything else,
But there will still be comparisons. With my experience, I grew up in a public school until year 9. Then year 9, so growing up, I did the whole piano lessons, blah, blah, blah. I was in the top of my class. I was one of the only Asian kids in my class. And there were very few people who tried in primary school. Year 7, year 8 came along. I went to a public school. And then year 9 came and I got changed to a Christian private school. And predominantly 70% of the students there were Asian. And that made the environment extremely competitive. So I went from being the top of my year level to dropping down to top 20%. And then by year 12 came, because you had that drive that you was always on top. And when you lose that drive, you pretty much burn out so quick. And then it didn't stop there. Thank God I got into my uni course. I was pretty much worked my ass off, got my way back to the top. And as soon as I graduated, it didn't stop there. Like you have to go pretty much
it's constant benchmark.
You have to keep looking for a job. And I got very lucky to get, not to brag or anything, but I did get very lucky to get six-figure income on the very first job that I got. And so that was bragging rights for my mum. My son is, he's working in dentistry, he's earning a top dollar. And the truth is,
I love to know what she says now that you're a
$0.
struggling musician.
But the funny thing is, I was 24 when I was earning six-figure incomes, right? And I knew for the fact that if I continued to work my way up, by 30, I could have easily earned 3 to 4 houses. By the time I'm 35, I could have had 5 houses. By 40, I could have retired and just lived off the money off the houses, right? But reading this article, it made me think about why I did what I did, why I left dentistry, why I went to go and pursue music instead. And one thing that the article said, which I really want to point out, is that Alex said, the author, he or she of the article said, sometimes moving sideways will make you happier than moving forward. That moving diagonally and sideways, and probably even backwards, each have their own merits, while age-specific qualifiers only apply to a very particular form of progress, forward motion.
I love that.
So it made me think about everybody who's in this rat race trying to earn top dollar. You're only comparing yourself to everybody else who's you want to live in like those houses with like gray tumbler type of concrete walls. You want to live in an industrial home where it's only can be eligible to people who's earning the best of the best. But people haven't stopped to ask, why are they doing this?
And I think, like, you touched on a really good point. It's not about how fast you can get there. It's about how you get there. And I think, we talked about our parents in the last segment. For example, your mum, she was a single mother. She raised 2 kids. Then she bought a house in her 30s, was it? And so imagine if she was comparing herself like we were, she would have felt really shit about herself. And, my parents, for example, they moved here when they were 24. And so they didn't buy a house until they were like 30 something as well. So their journey is a lot more different than, I guess, like the traditional journey nowadays. And I feel like, I think that's more impressive how they, were able to save up to buy a house, earning $10 an hour or raising 2 kids and buying a house on a single parent income. I think that's more impressive than, someone who's just graduated uni and had their parents' support and then buy a house.
And I guess the times are so different that if our parents didn't work as hard as they did, they would have died. And that's how severe it was. Like, your parents could have died in the Kuoch tunnels.
Yeah, the Kuoch tunnels.
And my mum would have actually like been so broke, raising 2 kids by herself. So times have definitely changed. And when we do grow older in a very privileged society, we realize that parents, Asian parents especially, do put this pressure on their kids. It's because of what they've been through as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So even though, yes, it's very impressive to raise your kids on a very single household, or your parents come from a boat from overseas, but the pressures on their child to succeed that can also not just be as greater, but probably equal as well.
So do we think that it's this pressure to achieve everything so young? Is it because of our parents' upbringing, or a bit of mixture of both?
Definitely our parents. 100% our parents. And it's not their fault. They would die to be in our positions that we had today. So we are very, very grateful. But it does come down to our upbringing. So when I look at some friends who are unemployed, and compared to some friends who are not unemployed and work in the Big Four company, the funny thing is the friend that's unemployed is actually looking at the direction on what they personally want in life.
Yeah.
So they actually are going against a race against themselves, pushing themselves to better their craft and their creativity or whatever they want to do in life. Whereas if I compare it to my friend in the Big Four, and I'm not shitting on the Big Four companies, all I'm saying is that the friends who are in the Big Four companies or in those jobs which do earn big bucks, they don't, I guarantee a lot of them don't know what they want to do with their life, and they're just in that because it's a rat race.
Yeah, and I think you're speaking from a perspective where I think my child upbringing was very different. Like, my parents never put pressure on me to do anything, but I think for me the pressure came from people weren't related to me. The pressure from society, actually. Like, growing up, I was always praised because I've done so much growing up. I started my own viral K-pop blog when I was 16, and people were like, why are you only 16? You've done so much. You're interviewing K-pop celebrities when you're only 16, 17, 18. And then when I started my business when at 21, people were like, wow, you're so young. You're you're gonna be so rich in the future. You're gonna be like the Mark Zuckerberg, next Mark Zuckerberg, whatever.
Why did you start those companies? I want to ask. Was it just out of interest, curiosity, or?
For me, it was like, actually, it was the pressure of wanting to be a young, successful entrepreneur. I think that's something that a lot of people try to achieve this day and age. And for me, that fed me. Like, I kept wanting to do that. But now that I'm 26, 27, I do have a very successful business. But I look at everyone else, my friends are like climbing the corporate ladder. And I'm like, shit, is this going to be the rest of my life? Am I impressive still at 27? And so, yeah, for me, the pressure has come carrying from the external, society, not from my parents. But I can totally understand, being, especially when you're Asian, a lot of Asian parents put pressure on their kids.
But I think it's for your case, it's a bit different because you grew up having to do so much for your family. And if you didn't push yourself, even though this was self-driven, if you didn't push yourself, possibly you're probably thinking, shit, my family's gonna starve to death if I don't achieve what I've achieved.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely part of it was definitely that, because I knew my parents, they barely spoke any English here. My dad had a disability from working, labor jobs, so my mom was his carer, so we had no income. So I knew that if I didn't work hard enough for my family, then we're not gonna our lives aren't gonna change. But yeah, that was definitely part of it. But definitely a big part was being fed that while you're so young, you're doing this already at your age. What, imagine your life when you're 30. And I'm looking now, I'm like, shit, I'm 27 now. Being 30 is only 3 years away. Am I just gonna be this business owner for the rest of my life? Or, what happens when we decide to sell the business? What do I have left? I can't do anything. I'll be starting the corporate job from the very beginning, or starting another business from the very beginning. So I think, we just got to take into account, our experiences, how we get there, not how fast we get there. But I would love to hear everyone else's opinions on this. What were your pressures growing up? And yeah, let us know in our Facebook group and our Instagram page.
Hello, thank you for watching this special video. And if you like what you watch, please make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. But also check out our information down below as well. See you next time.
Bye.